guys, it's Tessa. So, as the title indicates, I made something and I just kind of want to talk about it, okay? So, context. When it comes to crocheting, because I've been crocheting for so long and I have a comprehensive understanding of how the stitches look and work and how they're made, I'm able to look at images of crochet items and get a pretty quick idea of how they're made. Usually I'm only off by maybe the way I'm doing the stitches, or if I'm missing a specific feature like a front post or back post double crochets trip me up a lot of the time when I'm looking at them in an image. If I can feel the item, I'm 99% sure I can usually recreate it pretty easily. However, with knitting, that is still an enigma in my brain that I can't fully lock onto the comprehension of it fully. So when it comes to looking at some projects, I struggle a lot with understanding how it's been made without seeing some sort of pattern or grid or something. However, one project that doesn't happen with is just things that are just made of ribbing or seed stitch. I can usually see those or analyze those pretty easily, which brings us to today's project. I wanted to do a video specifically on this because, one, I think it's really interesting and I think you'll find it really interesting, and two, it's talking about two patterns that were pretty popular in 2025 that I did not jump on the train for originally. So, to show off our guy here, I did use the Malabrigo Rio in the color Glitter for one side, and then I used the Sea Change fibers in Odile, which I believe you can only get in their sport weight. It's whatever's right above DK, I think. It's either whatever's right above DK or DK, but I think it was in the DK category at Lambtown last year, but it was not, like in the display it was, but on their website it's not marked under DK. But from what you can see on this guy is we have essentially combined two patterns here. We've used the shaping, more or less, of the Sophie hood, but essentially the stitch pattern of the Alex hood. So fundamentally, the two big differences between these two projects are, one, the Sophie hood is done in knit stitches all the way through, and it's one continuous piece from one end all the way through the hood, all the way back down through the other end. However, the Alex hood is constructed slightly differently. The Alex hood has two parts to it, essentially. The first part, which is basically creating your tails in the back section of the hood, it's one long continuous strip. No creasing, no shaping for the head or anything. And then once you finish that strip, you then cast on stitches at the center of that strip to then form your hood, which, not a bad composition either. That's a completely fine way to make your hoods or things like that. I think for some people that works really well. For somebody like me who is not the best at making sure I pick up the right number of stitches, or I'm not the best at making sure I pick up an even number of stitches across one side to the other, armholes are a beast, okay? However, that is the Alex hood. That is the construction of the Alex hood. So essentially what I wanted to do, because I personally love the way ribbing looks, I don't know how well you can see it, I'll try to turn up the exposure on my camera if I need to, but I personally really like the way ribbing looks in general, especially when it's blocked out like this and it's nice and flat. And I really liked the construction of the Sophie hood because I liked the curvature of the hood here, not to get all mathematical, but I liked the fact that it curved here and didn't come to a point, or that the curve actually works. It's a curve. It's not a bunch of diagonal lines slowly making a curve. But just to give you an idea of what it looks like on, because I should also add, I don't own either of the patterns of the Sophie hood or the Alex hood. This is kind of my first attempt at using the same, I don't know the words, so I'm gonna say sequencing in my brain. It's using the same sequencing to figure out how the stitches are done, like I do with crocheting. So this is my first attempt at it. The only real mistake I made, I will say, is I made the straight part of the hood here in the back a little bit too long, in my opinion, but that's okay, that's no big deal. My tails are also uneven, but I think that's just because the Malabrigo is a superwash and the Odile here is not. So those are the two main differences of this yarn. And then if we put our tails up, I unfortunately have not gotten to wear this yet for the winter because one, I finished it late, and two, it's supposed to be 90 degrees this week here in California, and I'm so excited, you know. I'm just ecstatic about it, as all of you know how much I love the summer. So I haven't really worn it out yet. I honestly think it'll do pretty well. My only problem is I don't like wearing my hair down really ever if I can avoid it, especially when it's feeling kind of crusty dusty because this side's been over bleached too much, but that's not the point here. Both this I feel like I'd have to wear my hair down because of the way the hood is shaped. Anyway, not the point, but basically, yeah, I thought we would talk about this because I think this turned out amazing. Again, I think the only part that I did too long potentially is just that straight seam in the back from where the hood's connected. Otherwise, I'll try to find the video if I can, but there's this woman here on YouTube who essentially she creates videos to help with like difficult parts of some patterns. She typically does popular ones, and she did one for the Sophie scarf. That's how I was able to loosely figure out like the right curvature here. In general, I would recommend using a superwash for this project, but that's just because I personally like knowing I like knowing that the stitches will sit a little bit flatter, in my opinion. Like maybe it's because I took this off the blocking mats a little too fast, which it had been sitting there for 4 days, so I don't think I did. But if you look at the stitches themselves, I'll see if my camera will focus when I do this. But if you look at the stitches themselves on the superwash here, they're sitting flat. You can fully see where the different ribbings sit, where the purl stitches sit, and where the knit stitches sit. However, on the non-superwash side, it's a little bit harder to see, one, because this is brown, but two, because I just think it doesn't sit as flat as superwash, in my opinion. Additionally, I had such a struggle figuring out this stupid I-cord to start. It took me like 6 or 7 different tries to get it right. I did end up using almost all of the Malabrigo that I had, which is so nice. And then also, and I did end up using almost all of the Malabrigo, and then I used almost all of the Odile as well, which is really nice because, as many of you know, I'm trying to cut down my stash because it's just too much. Anyway, I also think that one, you should totally buy the Sophie hood or the Alex hood patterns. The only reason why I didn't is because I want to challenge myself, and I'm also not going to give you instructions on how to do this either. But with that, one thing that really got me, and I've heard people talk about this with the Sophie scarf specifically, this whole like first couple rounds of what are these called? Increases. The first couple rounds of increasing I kept unintentionally flip-flopping which side I needed to be on for the increase. So I ended up doing a strategy where I just had, I believe I had 8 stitch markers like connected all together, and then when I'd get to that stitch marker, I'd flip it to the next one. And then when I got to the last one, that's when I would do my increase, and I'd flip it back to the start. That seemed to really help me at least understand when I needed to flip it and kind of when I need to do the increasing. Also, personally, because I'm not good at increasing when it comes to knitting, I do recommend, if it's possible, to increase at the end of the round instead of at the start of the round. But I think that's also just because I'm not super great at I-cords either. Like, my I-cord tension throughout this whole project is very funny. I'll put an overview here of going like across this whole thing so you can get a better view of it. But with that, like I struggle a little bit with I-cords, and I struggle a little bit with knowing when and where to place my increases usually. But yeah, so I think the Sophie hood is definitely a great beginner pattern, especially with the video I'm going to pin below, or pin in the I-card here, for helping with some of these harder pieces of it. And then from what I know when it comes to knitting for Olive, I also think that they have a really good like understanding of verbiage usage. Like they're usually really good at being specific and detailed, like Petite Knit. And so I think both these hoods are great patterns. I think I might get the Alex hood pattern, okay? I might try it, okay? But I think if I'm gonna do that, I would want to get some of their cashmere, which first of all, I'm gonna buy ban, by the way, if you didn't know. I can't buy any yarn, which is so sad. But I can't buy any yarn until I get through like a third, a fourth. I'll take a fourth of my stash, okay? A fourth of it. If I can get through a fourth of it, I'll be pretty happy, and I'll be kind of okay with getting like maybe 1 or 2 balls of yarn. But I'm thinking of using their cashmere for it because 1, I've never owned cashmere, and 2, from what I've heard, it'll be really soft. I am using Knitting for Olive's merino, not the heavy merino, the normal one, for another project at the moment, and I'm really liking it, so I have a feeling I'll like their cashmere. Additionally, I think, personally, I don't love the way just doing like knit stitches looks. I just don't like it very much. When I tried to make this originally, I actually started doing that. Let me backtrack. When I started making this originally, my plan was to make like an actual shawl and not even one of the hoods. It was just going to be like a shawl that kind of loosely used the similar setup of the Sophie scarf and then the stitch pattern of the Alex hood. But I started doing that, doing the knit stitches, and just I hated it. I don't like the way it looks. I don't know why I thought I would like the way it looks. So I stopped doing it, right? And then I was like, okay, let me switch stitches. And I tried doing like a seed stitch pattern. And that just got really hard for me to remember to follow when it came to like doing the increases. So I ended up just frogging the whole thing at that point. I was gonna like switch back and forth between knit stitches and the seed stitch throughout. But then I was like, fuck it, I don't really care. So I frogged the whole thing, restarted it, and that's kind of how I came to this sign of pattern. And then I saw the Alex hood for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, that's what I want to make. Maybe I should frog this, buy that pattern to make it. And then I saw that the hood was separated, and realized I don't want to do that. So that's kind of why that happened the way it did as well. But honestly, I get both patterns, get one pattern, get the other. Use, and it's not going to be difficult, but you can use the 2x2 rib stitch in the Sophie hood pattern. Just don't do all knit stitches in that section between the 2 I-cords. You'll pretty easily be able to catch on to it. I don't know if I started this project necessarily correctly, and I also don't know if I finished it off correctly either. I've seen other people talk about this, specifically for the Sophie hood. I don't actually know if the Alex hood even uses an I-cord edge, but with those, I started with the I-cord edge, obviously, and when I finished, or when I did the I-cord edge, I don't know if I did enough of the I-cord before switching into doing it horizontally, nope, vertically, because all I did was add 1 stitch to start, and then after, for me, 8 rows, I did another stitch, and then repeat that all the way up. I don't know if the Sophie hood or the Alex hood start with only technically 1 working stitch there in the middle and just the 2 I-cord edges or not. And then when it came to finishing, the thing I've seen people talk about when it comes to the Sophie hood is like creating a smooth finish, and like actually making it look seamless. I think I did a pretty okay job of it. Again, I'm gonna have a whole video going here of this project, but I think I did a pretty good job of it actually, honestly. Let's see. Only other thing I want to talk about, and I touched on it a little bit, when it comes to using superwash and non-superwash, I think the problem here was I didn't properly write down the back of the hood shaping here. So when I ended up doing all the decreases and I needed to do the increases on the way back, I don't know if I actually did, I think I did too many increases, so that by the time I got down to the end here, we had 2 extra stitches, so I had to go 2 sets of decreases farther than I would have normally. I think that's kind of what happened. I don't know for sure though. I'm starting to cook in this though, so I'm going to take it off. I'm not for sure, I'm not 100% sure that's what happened, but I think that's what happened. When it came to blocking this, the way I did it, because I was really nervous about the Malabrigo, was I had our non-superwash, so the sea change fibers, I had that side down and I had the superwash on top. That way I knew that with the non-superwash I could pull it quite a bit and it would still keep its shape. So when I did the pinning, I would pin into the Malabrigo first and then pull the stitches as I needed to. I will note as well, when it comes to doing like this rib stitch like this, you're gonna have your stretchiness. When you're blocking it out, I personally recommend doing all of your straight pins first, up until like halfway through these tails, then starting to pin the back side and the angled side, so that when you get slightly farther down and you're getting that like stretching effect where you may be pulling it a little too straight or a little too tight, you can go back slowly on each side and pull that back as needed, versus like going all the way down one side, trying to pin the other side, stretching it too much, and then warping your stitches. But that's really all I want to talk about today. I was just really excited that I finished this and that I've been working on it. Here's like a really big showing of how different lengths my tails are. It's bad. I think I just had 2 extra stitches and I didn't know. That's my guess, at least. That, or because this is non-superwash. I knit a little tightly. So with the superwash, I think I might have just gone a little bit tighter than I intended to. So I tried to make up for it using the sea change fibers. But I think that ended up just like making it too long. I don't really know. Again, if I did this again, I would take better notes so that I could recreate it nicer or easier. But that will end this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye.